The Great Hall of Nexus Prime had never seen such fear. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in perfect silence as the holographic display showed the evidence that would change everything. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center, his crystalline form shimmering with nervous energy. "We have intercepted signals from the third planet of a yellow star in the outer rim," Veltar announced. His voice echoed through the vast chamber where representatives of 67 different species had gathered. "The transmissions confirm our worst fears. A new species has achieved nuclear capability." Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. The keeper Zix-Thul, ancient beyond measure, slowly rose from his seat. His species had guided galactic civilization for over 10,000 years, and his words carried the weight of ages. "Show us these transmissions," Zix-Thul commanded. The hologram changed, displaying crude electromagnetic signals bouncing through space. The assembled delegates listened in growing horror as the alien voices spoke of war, destruction, and conquest. The beings called themselves humans, and their communications painted a picture of a violent, chaotic species that fought constantly among themselves. "They have split the atom," reported science advisor Morvek, his tentacles writhing with distress. "But unlike every other species we have encountered, they immediately weaponized this discovery. They have created bombs capable of destroying entire cities." The hall erupted in shocked gasps. Every known galactic species had used atomic energy for peaceful purposes first. The idea of turning such power into weapons of mass destruction was unthinkable to civilized minds. "There is more," Veltar continued grimly. "Analysis of their cultural transmissions reveals disturbing patterns. They create entertainment focused on violence and war. They celebrate conflict. Most disturbing of all, they produce fictional stories about conquering other worlds and enslaving alien species." Admiral Kethron of the Galactic Defense Force stood up. His warrior species had maintained peace for centuries through strength and honor, but even he looked shaken. What kind of world could produce such beings? The answer came from xenobiologist Thyssera, whose delicate blue form contrasted sharply with her grave words. "We have analyzed their home planet. It is what we classify as a death world. Extreme weather patterns, massive natural disasters, and countless deadly predators. The humans evolved not as peaceful herbivores or gentle omnivores, but as apex predators on a planet that tried to kill them every day." She activated another hologram showing Earth in all its terrifying beauty. Hurricanes larger than small moons, earthquakes that could split continents, volcanoes that could darken the sky for years, ice ages that covered half the planet, deserts that could cook flesh in minutes, and oceans filled with creatures that existed only to hunt and kill. "Look at their biology," Thyssera continued. "They have forward-facing eyes like predators. Their teeth are designed for tearing meat. They can survive in environments that would kill most of us. They heal from injuries that would be fatal to other species. They are built for violence." Economic analyst Rethvor added his own disturbing findings. "Their economic systems are based on competition and conflict. They fight over resources instead of sharing them. They have developed weapons that can destroy their entire planet, yet they continue to build more. They are not just violent. They are efficiently violent." The ancient keeper Zix-Thul had remained silent throughout these revelations, but now he spoke again. His voice carried the weight of prophecy and fear. "In the old text there is a warning. Beware the deathworlders who know no fear, for they shall inherit the void. I had always hoped it was merely legend, but these humans match every description. They do not flee from danger, they seek it out. They do not avoid conflict, they create it. They do not accept limitations, they destroy them." The hall fell silent again as the implications sank in. Every species in the galactic community had evolved on peaceful worlds, had learned cooperation before competition, had chosen harmony over chaos. The humans represented everything they had moved beyond. "What do we know of their space capabilities?" asked Defense Minister Qualteth. "Primitive but advancing rapidly," replied Technology Assessor Dexman. "They have achieved orbital flight and have landed on their natural satellite. Their technology is crude but functional. Most concerning is their rate of advancement. They went from first flight to space travel in less than a century. At this rate, they will achieve faster-than-light travel within decades. The fear in the room became palpable. A species that advanced so quickly, especially one with such violent tendencies, represented an existential threat to galactic civilization. Admiral Kethrun spoke what everyone was thinking. If they reach the stars, they will bring their violence with them. Their first instinct will be to conquer and destroy. We have seen this pattern in their own history. Whenever they encounter other groups of their own species, war follows. But there is something else, Veltar said reluctantly. Something that makes them even more dangerous. They do not simply fight. They adapt. Every war they wage teaches them new ways to kill. Every challenge makes them stronger. They learn from every defeat and become more dangerous with each victory. Cultural analyst Plexion had been studying human entertainment and literature. His findings were perhaps the most disturbing of all. Their fiction is filled with stories of expansion into space. They dream of colonizing other worlds, of meeting alien species, of spreading across the galaxy. But in their stories, they always win. They always conquer. They cannot imagine a universe where they are not dominant. The keeper Zixthul slowly walked to the center of the chamber. His ancient form moved with the careful grace of someone who had seen civilizations rise and fall. The choice before us is simple, he said. We can try to make contact with these humans, attempt to guide them toward peaceful coexistence, or we can act to protect ourselves and the civilization we have built. Contact is too dangerous, insisted Admiral Kethrun. These beings see everything as a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be exploited. They would view our peaceful overtures as weakness. But if we do nothing, they will eventually reach us anyway, argued Ambassador Veltar. At least if we make contact now, we can try to influence their development. No, said the keeper firmly. We have one option that might preserve galactic peace. We establish a quarantine around their system. We monitor them closely, and we pray to whatever gods still listen that they never develop faster-than-light travel. The vote was unanimous. Within days, automated monitoring stations would be placed around the Sol system. Long-range sensors would track every ship, every signal, every sign of human advancement toward the stars. A vast network of early warning systems would alert the galaxy if the humans ever managed to break free of their home system. But even as the measures were put in place, doubt gnawed at the galactic leaders. They had created a prison around Earth, but prisons only worked if the inmates could not break free. And everything they had learned about humans suggested that breaking free from impossible situations was exactly what they did best. The humans had survived ice ages and asteroid impacts, had climbed out of oceans onto land, had conquered their entire planet despite every natural disaster it could throw at them. They had tamed fire, split the atom, and reached for the stars with primitive rockets held together by determination and hope. The galaxy had seen the humans coming and had done everything they could to stop them. But deep in their hearts, they all knew the truth. The quarantine would not hold forever. Someday, somehow, the humans would break free, and when that day came, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The only question was whether the galaxy would survive their arrival. 23 years had passed since the quarantine was established around the Sol system. The galaxy had almost begun to relax. The humans seemed contained, their primitive signals growing stronger but still bound to their single star system. Then the alarm started screaming. Admiral Kethrun was awakened from sleep by his aide's frantic calls. "Sir, you need to see this immediately. Long-range sensors have detected something impossible." Kethrun rushed to the command center of Nexus Station, the massive defensive platform that guarded the approaches to the galactic core. What he saw on the displays made his blood freeze. A ship, clearly of human design, was moving through space. At faster-than-light speeds, how is this possible, he demanded. Our projections showed they wouldn't achieve FTL for at least another 50 years. His science officer, a nervous creature named Vextal, was frantically running calculations. The energy signature is unlike anything we've seen. It's crude, inefficient, and should be impossible to sustain. But somehow it works. The human ship dropped out of warp space near the edge of the Kepler system, a minor trading post on the rim of civilized space. Immediately, Admiral Kethrun dispatched the Fifth Fleet to intercept. 47 advanced warships surrounded the single human vessel, their weapons powered but not yet aimed. On the bridge of the UES Discovery, Captain Nam Ho Kim studied the alien fleet with intense curiosity rather than fear. His crew of 50 humans had volunteered for this first interstellar mission, knowing they might never return home. Now, faced with technology far beyond their own, they remained calm and professional. "Captain," reported Communications Officer Hee Jin Choi, "we're receiving signals on multiple frequencies, some kind of mathematical sequence." "Can you decode it?" Nam Ho asked. Hee Jin worked with the ship's computer, humanity's most advanced artificial intelligence. Within minutes, she had broken the basic structure. "It's a peaceful greeting, sir. They're trying to establish communication protocols." Nam Ho nodded. "Send our response. Mathematical constants followed by our own peaceful intentions. Let them know we come in friendship." Admiral Kethrun watched from his flagship as the human response arrived. The speed of their translation impressed him, but what worried him more was the tone of the message. Where he expected submission or awe, he found only curiosity and eagerness to communicate. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "they're requesting permission to come aboard one of our ships for face-to-face contact." Kethrun couldn't hide his surprise. Every other species' first reaction to meeting the galactic community had been overwhelming shock at the technology gap. The humans seemed to take it in stride. The meeting was arranged aboard a neutral diplomatic vessel. When Captain Nam Ho Kim stepped through the airlock, he was accompanied by only 3 crew members: Navigation Officer So-Jin Park, Chief Engineer Tae-Wan Lee, and Dr. Min-seo Jung, their science advisor. Admiral Kethrun had expected to meet cowering primitives overwhelmed by superior technology. Instead, he found himself facing confident professionals who looked around the advanced alien ship with the same expression he might wear while examining an interesting new design. "Welcome to galactic space," Kethrun said through the translation device. "I am Admiral Kethrun of the Galactic Defense Force." "Thank you for the welcome," Nam Ho replied with a slight bow. "I am Captain Kim of Earth's first interstellar vessel. We're honored to make contact with galactic civilization." What followed was the most unusual first contact in galactic history. Instead of asking for help or expressing wonder at alien technology, the humans asked technical questions. Engineer Tae-Wan Lee examined the ship's fusion reactors and suggested improvements. Dr. Min-seo Jung inquired about the mathematical principles behind their faster-than-light communication systems. "Your power generation is impressive," Tae-Wan commented. "But have you considered using magnetic containment fields in a helical configuration? We've found it increases efficiency by 12%. Admiral Kethrun exchanged worried glances with his science officer. The humans weren't just unimpressed by galactic technology, they were proposing improvements. "How do you know about magnetic containment?" Kethrun asked carefully. "We've been working on fusion power for decades," Dr. Min-seo replied. "The principles are fairly straightforward once you understand plasma dynamics. We just haven't had access to some of the rare elements you use in your systems." Navigator So-Jin Park was studying the ship's navigation computer with intense interest. "This quantum processing array is fascinating. We've theorized similar systems but haven't built one this large yet. How do you prevent decoherence at this scale?" The alien crew exchanged more worried looks. These humans were talking about quantum computers and plasma physics as if they were everyday topics. Captain Nam Ho seemed oblivious to the growing tension. "We'd like to propose a cultural and technological exchange. We have some unique perspectives that might interest your scientists, and we're eager to learn from civilizations with more experience." "What kind of perspectives?" Admiral Kethrun asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Dr. Min-seo smiled. "Well, we've made significant advances in genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and nanotechnology. We've also done some interesting work with antimatter containment and dimensional physics. Nothing too advanced, but we think our approaches might complement your existing research." The silence that followed was deafening. These were all technologies the galaxy had declared too dangerous to pursue. The humans spoke of them as casual research projects. "You mentioned artificial intelligence," said Science Officer Vextal nervously. "How advanced are your systems?" "Our ship's computer is fully autonomous and can make independent decisions," Hyejin Choi explained. "We've also developed AIs for managing our cities, controlling our manufacturing, and assisting with scientific research. They're quite helpful." Admiral Kethran felt his worst fears being confirmed. Not only had the humans developed forbidden technologies, they were using them routinely. "Perhaps we should discuss trade relationships," Captain Namho suggested. "We understand you have a galactic economy. Earth would like to participate." "What do you have to offer?" Kethran asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Raw materials, primarily," Taewon Lee replied. "We're quite good at extracting resources from dangerous locations. We've got mining operations in asteroid fields, underwater facilities in crushing, ocean depths, and we're planning to harvest gas giants. Most species seem to avoid high-risk extraction, so there might be market opportunities there." "You mine in asteroid fields?" Vextal asked in horror. "Of course," Sojin Park replied. "The gravity is low and the resources are concentrated. It's dangerous work, but humans are good at managing risk." Dr. Min Seo added, "We're also prepared to explore hazardous sectors that other species might find unsuitable. Radiation-heavy, nebulae, gravitationally unstable regions, areas with hostile wildlife. We find that the most dangerous places often have the most valuable resources." Admiral Kethran realized with growing dread that the humans weren't just unafraid of danger. They actively sought it out. They saw the galaxy's most feared regions as business opportunities. "There's something else," Captain Namho said. "Our long-range sensors detected what might be ancient ruins in the Magellan sector. We'd be interested in mounting an archaeological expedition if no one else has claimed the area." "The Magellan sector is quarantined," Kethran said quickly. "It's unstable, dangerous." "Perfect," Namho smiled. "That means it's probably been undisturbed. When can we start?" As the meeting continued, Admiral Kethran's worst fears were confirmed. The humans weren't just violent primitives who would attack at first sight. They were something far more dangerous. Innovators who treated impossibility as a challenge rather than a limitation. When the humans finally returned to their ship, they left behind a list of star systems they wanted to explore, technological exchanges they proposed, and dangerous missions they were volunteering to undertake. They also left behind a group of very worried alien officials who realized that everything they thought they knew about managing galactic civilization was about to change. As the UES Discovery jumped back to warp and disappeared into the void, Admiral Kethran sent an urgent message to Nexus Prime. The message was simple but carried implications that would reshape galactic policy forever. First contact with humans successful. Recommend immediate emergency council session. The situation is worse than we feared. The humans hadn't come to the galaxy seeking help or begging for acceptance. They had come as equals, ready to trade, explore, and innovate. They had looked at galactic civilization not with awe, but with the eyes of people who saw room for improvement. The galaxy had spent 23 years dreading humanity's arrival. Now they realized their fears had been completely inadequate. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within 72 hours of Admiral Kethran's report. Representatives from every major civilization gathered on Nexus Prime, their faces showing the same mixture of fear and fascination that had gripped the galaxy since news of successful first contact spread. Ambassador Veltar stood before the assembly, holding a datapad that contained the most disturbing intelligence report in galactic history. The initial trade negotiations with Captain Namho Kim have revealed information that changes everything we thought we knew about human capabilities. The holographic display activated, showing detailed scans of the human ship Discovery. What the assembled delegates saw defied their understanding of technological development. The human vessel was a patchwork of brilliance and primitiveness, held together by solutions that should not work, but somehow did. Their faster-than-light drive, Uses a principle we abandoned 3,000 years ago as too unstable, reported Chief Technology Analyst Zorvek. Yet they have made it work through what can only be described as controlled recklessness. They achieve warp speeds by riding the edge of catastrophic failure. Dr. Min Seo Jung's technical discussions with the Galactic Science team had provided a window into human research priorities. The results were terrifying. Science advisor Morvek presented the findings with obvious reluctance. They have not just developed artificial intelligence, they have created what they call artificial general intelligence. Their computers can think, learn, and make decisions independently. They have given their machines consciousness and then put them in charge of critical systems. The hall erupted in shocked gasps. Every galactic civilization had strict laws against creating sentient machines, understanding the existential risk they posed. There is worse, Morvek continued. They have modified their own genetic code. They speak casually of eliminating diseases, enhancing physical capabilities, and extending lifespans. They are redesigning themselves at the molecular level. Xenobiologist Thaisara had spent days analyzing human biological samples provided during the cultural exchange. Her findings painted a picture of a species that was already more dangerous than their worst projections. Human physiology is impossible by conventional standards, she reported. They can survive in vacuum for up to 15 minutes, tolerate radiation levels that would kill most of us instantly, and heal from injuries that should be fatal. But this is only their baseline. The genetic modifications they have already implemented make them even more resilient. Show them the psychological profiles, urged behavioral analyst Nexval. The hologram changed to display human recreational activities, mountain climbing, deep-sea diving, extreme sports, spacewalks, and combat simulations. The assembled aliens watched in horror as humans deliberately placed themselves in mortal danger for what they called fun. They do not avoid risk. They seek it, Nexval explained. Our psychological evaluation team attempted to find their breaking point, the level of danger that would cause them to retreat. We could not find one. When faced with impossible odds, humans do not surrender. They adapt. The economic implications were equally disturbing. Trade analyst Rethvor had studied the human proposals for joining the galactic marketplace, and the results challenged every assumption about interstellar commerce. They offered to mine asteroids in hazardous gravitational fields, explore nebulae with deadly radiation levels, and extract resources from planets we have declared uninhabitable, he reported. When we explained that these operations had casualty rates approaching 100%, their response was to ask about hazard pay rates. Ambassador Un Young Han had arrived on Nexus Prime to establish the first human embassy. Her very presence was causing disruption to galactic society. Traditional diplomatic protocols assumed that new species would be overwhelmed by galactic civilization and would require decades to adapt. Instead, Ambassador Han was proposing changes to existing trade agreements and suggesting improvements to diplomatic procedures. She treats galactic civilization not as something to join, but as something to optimize, reported diplomatic coordinator Felthanis. In 3 days, she has identified inefficiencies in our legal codes, proposed streamlining our bureaucratic processes, and suggested new trade routes through sectors we abandoned as too dangerous. The military implications were perhaps the most frightening. General Sung Ho Yoon had volunteered to observe Galactic Defense Force training exercises. His casual suggestions had revolutionized military thinking in ways that made seasoned commanders question everything they knew about warfare. Admiral Kethrun presented the disturbing findings. He watched our standard defensive formations and pointed out 17 critical vulnerabilities that none of our strategists had ever considered. When we asked how he identified these weaknesses so quickly, he said they were obvious from a tactical perspective. But the most disturbing aspect, Admiral Kethrun continued, is their approach to conflict. Every other species seeks to minimize casualties and end fighting as quickly as possible. Humans study war like a science. They analyze every battle, learn from every defeat, and become more effective with each engagement. The breaking point came when economic advisor Jin Woo Park submitted humanity's formal application to join the galactic economy. Instead of requesting aid or gradual integration, the document outlined humanity's plan to solve several of the galaxy's most persistent problems. They volunteered to establish mining operations in the neutron fields, read Trade Minister Qualteth in disbelief. They offered to explore the dark nebula regions that have been forbidden for 2 millennia. They propose colonizing worlds in the Chaos sector that we abandoned after losing 3 separate expeditions. They see our most dangerous regions as business opportunities, added Ambassador Veltar. What we fear they see as potential profit. The psychological impact on galactic society was already becoming apparent. Young members of various species had begun studying human techniques, adopting human approaches to problem-solving, and questioning long-established limitations. They are changing us simply by existing, warned cultural analyst Plexion. Human methods are being studied in our universities. Human philosophy is being debated in our forums. Human attitudes toward risk and exploration are spreading like a virus through our civilizations. The ancient keeper Zixthal had remained silent throughout the proceedings, but now he spoke with the weight of ages in his voice. We face a choice that will define the future of galactic civilization, he said. We can attempt to contain the humans, to limit their expansion and influence. Or we can accept that our ordered, peaceful galaxy is about to become something entirely different. What do you recommend? Asked Ambassador Veltar. I recommend that we prepare for the inevitable, Zixthal replied. The humans will not be contained. They will not be limited. They will not conform to our expectations or follow our rules. They will remake this galaxy in their image, whether we help them or not. But surely we can establish some boundaries, protested Admiral Kethrin. Some restrictions on their expansion. The Keeper's ancient laugh was bitter with knowledge. You still do not understand what we are facing. These humans do not see boundaries. They see challenges to overcome. They do not accept restrictions. They find ways around them. They do not respect limitations. They prove them wrong. The session ended with no clear resolution, only growing awareness that galactic civilization stood at a crossroads. The humans had arrived exactly as the old prophecies had warned. They were deathworlders who knew no fear, and they were already beginning to inherit the void. Over the following weeks, human ships appeared throughout the galaxy. Some were explorers, charting dangerous regions. Others were traders opening new routes, and still others were colonists heading for worlds that had been written off as uninhabitable. Each ship carried humans who saw the galaxy not as a vast, dangerous place to be feared, but as an infinite frontier to be explored. The galaxy had spent years dreading humanity's arrival. Now they were beginning to understand that their dread had been entirely justified, just not in the way they had expected. The humans had not come as conquerors to destroy galactic civilization. They had come as partners who would transform it beyond recognition. The age of careful, cautious galactic society was ending. The age of human exploration was beginning, and for the first time in thousands of years, no one knew what the future would hold. Within 6 months of first contact, human influence was spreading through the galaxy like wildfire. What the Galactic Council had feared would be a violent invasion turned out to be something far more unsettling, a transformation that was impossible to stop because it was entirely voluntary. Ambassador Yun-Young Han had established the human embassy in the heart of Nexus Prime, and her approach to diplomacy was revolutionizing interstellar relations. Instead of following the careful protocols that had maintained galactic peace for millennia, she treated every problem as a puzzle to be solved, rather than a delicate balance to be preserved. The trade dispute between the crystalline hegemony and the gas giant collective has been going on for 300 years, she explained to a room full of experienced diplomats. But if we reroute shipping through the asteroid maze and establish relay stations in the dead systems, both sides get what they want without conflict. Diplomatic coordinator Fel Thanis stared at the human proposal with a mixture of admiration and terror. The asteroid maze has never been successfully navigated. The dead systems are called dead for good reason. No one has survived an attempt to establish permanent stations there. Ambassador Han smiled with the confidence that was becoming humanity's trademark. Then it's a good thing humans specialize in doing things that have never been done before. The military transformation was even more dramatic. When the crystalline hegemony faced their millennial problem with space pirates in the void reaches, they made the mistake of mentioning it to Commander Jimin Kang during a routine diplomatic function. "How long have these pirates been operating?" Jimin asked with casual interest. "Nearly 1,000 years, replied Hegemony Defense Minister Crystal. "They use the asteroid fields as cover and have bases throughout the sector. We lose dozens of ships every year to their raids. Have you tried hunting them actively instead of just defending against attacks?" The question stunned the alien military leaders. "Hunt them? In the void reaches? The radiation alone would kill our crews in days." "Right," Jimin nodded. "So you need ships and crews that can operate in high radiation environments. We can help with that." 3 months later, the 1,000-year pirate problem was over. Commander Jimin Kang had led a combined human-alien task force deep into the void reaches, using human ships specifically designed to operate in hostile environments. Instead of waiting for pirates to attack trade routes, they had tracked down every pirate base and eliminated them systematically. The pirate war's end sent shockwaves through galactic military thinking. Problems that had persisted for centuries were suddenly solvable if you were willing to take risks that no sane species would consider. Dr. Hyun-Soo Park arrived at the Galactic Research Institute with the kind of casual confidence that was making alien scientists question everything they thought they knew about the universe. His collaboration with the galaxy's greatest minds was producing results that none of them had thought possible. "The problem with your faster-than-light communication array," he explained to a room full of Nobel Prize equivalent winners, "is that you're trying too hard to maintain signal integrity. If you accept some data loss and use error correction algorithms, you can increase transmission speed by a factor of 50. But the data corruption would make the signals useless," protested Chief Physicist Quantel. "Only if you don't compensate for it," Dr. Hyun-Soo replied, sketching equations on the hologram. "Humans have been dealing with noisy communication channels for decades. We've developed techniques that actually work better with some interference than without it. The breakthrough in FTL communication was just the beginning. Human scientists were collaborating with alien researchers throughout the galaxy, and every project seemed to produce results that shouldn't have been possible. Meanwhile, human expansion continued at a pace that defied galactic understanding. Colony ships were launching from Earth every few weeks, each one heading for destinations that other species had written off as uninhabitable. Captain Wu Jin Lee sent regular reports from the human colony on Infernus Prime, a world so close to its star that surface temperatures reached 800 degrees Celsius during the day. "The underground cities are functioning perfectly," his latest report stated. "Geothermal power is abundant, and the mineral resources are incredible. We're already profitable and requesting additional colonists." Other human colonies were established in the upper atmospheres of gas giants, in asteroid fields with chaotic orbital mechanics, and on worlds with crushing gravity that would flatten most alien species. Each success challenged the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. The economic impact was impossible to ignore. Human merchants like businessman Jae-Hyun Oh were establishing trade routes through regions that had been considered impassable for thousands of years. Their willingness to travel dangerous paths was opening up resources and markets that the galaxy never knew existed. "The spiral arm passage has been closed for 2 millennia, Trade Coordinator Vestan explained to a gathering of economic ministers. "The gravitational anomalies make navigation impossible." "Impossible for conventional navigation," Jae-Hyun corrected. "But if you use predictive modeling and accept that you'll lose some ships, it becomes a calculated risk with enormous profit potential. We've already made 17 successful runs." The revelation that humans considered ship losses as acceptable business expenses rather than catastrophic failures fundamentally changed galactic economic theory. Engineer Young-Mi Kim provided perhaps the most dramatic example of human problem solving. When she solved the Helix Nebula navigation problem, the massive stellar phenomenon had blocked major trade routes for over 3,000 years, forcing commerce to travel vast distances around its edges. Why does everyone go around it? She asked during her first briefing with the Galactic Navigation Authority. The spatial distortions make it impossible to maintain course, explained Navigation Director Thornex. The energy discharges would destroy any ship that tried to pass through. We've lost hundreds of vessels over the centuries to explorers who thought they could find a path. Young Me studied the nebula data for 3 days, then submitted a navigation plan that left the alien experts speechless. If you enter at these coordinates and follow this trajectory, using the energy discharges to boost your engines instead of fighting them, you can cross in 18 hours instead of going around in 18 days. That's insane, Thornex protested. The margin for error is measured in meters. One mistake and you're dead. Yes, but if it works, it revolutionizes galactic commerce, Young Me replied with the matter-of-fact tone that was becoming humanity's signature. The first successful crossing of the Helix Nebula opened trade routes that had been theoretical for millennia. Commerce that had taken months now took days. Entire sectors of the galaxy that had been economically isolated suddenly became valuable trading partners. But the most profound change was not in technology or economics. It was in attitude. Young aliens throughout the galaxy were beginning to question why their species had accepted limitations that humans simply ignored. Why don't we mine the radiation fields? Asked a young crystalline engineer during a hegemony planning session. Because the radiation levels are fatal, replied his supervisor. Fatal to us, but not to humans. Maybe we could develop better protective equipment. Similar conversations were happening throughout galactic civilization. The human approach to problem solving, treating impossibility as a challenge rather than a final answer, was spreading like a virus through alien cultures. Research institutes that had been stagnant for centuries were suddenly buzzing with new projects. Military academies were revising tactical doctrines that had remained unchanged for millennia. Trade guilds were exploring routes that had been forbidden since the founding of galactic civilization. The ancient keeper Zixthul watched these changes with growing unease. They are not conquering us with weapons, he observed to the Galactic Council. They are conquering us with ideas. They are showing us possibilities we never considered and making us want to achieve them. Ambassador Veltar nodded grimly. Every species that works with humans comes away changed. They start thinking like humans. They start taking risks like humans. They start seeing the galaxy through human eyes. Is that necessarily bad? Asked a younger council member. The question hung in the air, highlighting the central dilemma of the human expansion. The galaxy was becoming more dynamic, more innovative, more willing to push boundaries. But it was also becoming more dangerous, more chaotic, more unpredictable. Ships were crossing previously impossible routes. Colonies were being established in the most hostile environments, and technologies that had been theoretical for millennia were becoming reality. The galaxy was transforming at a pace that would have been unthinkable just a year earlier. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through force. They had transformed it through example, showing other species that limitations were often just assumptions that no one had bothered to challenge. As the first human year in galactic space drew to a close, it was clear that nothing would ever be the same. The careful, cautious civilization that had maintained peace and stability for thousands of years was evolving into something more dynamic, more ambitious, and infinitely more dangerous. The galaxy had dreaded humanity's hour. The invasion began without warning in the dead of space between the galaxies. Long-range sensors detected the first ships emerging from the void, like phantoms materializing from nightmares. The Void Swarm had returned after 3,000 years of dormancy, and they brought with them the same hunger that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization once before. Admiral Kethran received the alert while reviewing reports of human colonial expansion. The irony was not lost on him that just as the galaxy was adapting to one impossible challenge, an even greater threat had emerged from the darkness. "How many ships?" he demanded, rushing to the command center of Nexus Station. "Initial count shows over 10,000 vessels," reported scanner technician Vexman, his voice tight with fear. "But the numbers keep growing. They're emerging from what appears to be a dimensional rift in deep space." Kethran studied the tactical display with growing dread. The Void Swarm ships were unlike anything in the galaxy's military databases, crystalline structures that seemed to absorb energy rather than reflect it, moving in patterns that defied conventional understanding of physics. "Activate the Galactic Defense Network," he ordered. "Send priority alerts to all member fleets and—" He paused, recognizing the bitter necessity. "Contact the humans. We're going to need every ship we can get." The first battle was a disaster. The 5th Galactic Fleet, commanded by Admiral Threncole, engaged the leading edge of the swarm near the frontier worlds. The battle lasted 4 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the galactic forces. "Their weapons adapt to our defensive systems," reported the only surviving captain, his ship limping back to base with half its crew dead. "Every shot we fired was less effective than the one before. By the end, our most powerful weapons were useless. The Void Swarm's advance was relentless. They consumed everything in their path. Ships, stations, entire planets disappeared into their crystalline hulks. Refugee fleets fleeing the outer systems brought reports that defied belief. "They don't just destroy," reported Captain Zilthanis of the merchant vessel Golden Current. "They absorb. They take everything, matter, energy, information, and incorporate it into their own systems. They're getting stronger with every world they consume." Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council devolved into panic. Fleet after fleet was destroyed or retreated in the face of the swarm's advance. Conventional weapons proved useless, established tactics failed completely, and the galaxy's most advanced defensive systems were turned against their creators. "At current rate of advance, they will reach the core systems in 18 months, reported Strategic Coordinator Morthanis. "Our projections show complete galactic conquest within 3 years." The ancient keeper Zixthul sat in stunned silence as reports poured in from across the galaxy. The carefully constructed civilization that had taken millennia to build was crumbling in a matter of weeks. Then Fleet Commander Dong Hyun Cho arrived with the human response fleet. What the aliens saw defied their understanding of military logic. Instead of gleaming warships built for maximum efficiency and crew protection, the humans had assembled a fleet of converted civilian vessels, mining ships, cargo haulers, and even passenger liners hastily equipped with whatever weapons they could find. "This is your military response?" Admiral Kethron asked in disbelief as he studied the human fleet composition. Commander Donghyun smiled with the calm confidence that was becoming humanity's trademark. "Every human ship in space volunteered for this mission. We don't have a separate military and civilian fleet. When Earth is threatened, everyone fights." The human fleet looked like a collection of spare parts held together by determination and desperation. But when they engaged the Void Swarm for the first time, something unprecedented happened. They won. Captain Sora Lim commanded a converted mining ship called the Iron Will in the first human engagement with a swarm dreadnought. Her vessel was outmassed 50-1 and outgunned by orders of magnitude, but when the battle ended, the swarm ship was debris, and the Iron Will was still fighting. "How did you defeat it?" demanded Admiral Kethron during the post-battle briefing. "We didn't fight it the way it expected," Sora explained. "The swarm adapts to whatever you throw at it, so we kept changing tactics every few minutes. Mining lasers, plasma torches, explosive charges, ramming attacks. We used everything except conventional weapons. Engineer Min-Ho Kim had jury-rigged the Iron Will's mining equipment into a weapon system that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. The swarm's adaptive systems are designed to counter military hardware," he explained. "They don't know what to do with mining equipment being used as weapons." But the real revelation came when Medical Officer Soo-Jin Yu reported on crew performance during extended combat operations. "Humans are maintaining effectiveness even after 48 hours of continuous battle," she reported. "Other species' performance degrades rapidly under these conditions, but humans seem to get more focused under extreme stress." The pattern repeated across dozens of engagements. Human crews operated effectively in conditions that would incapacitate other species. They adapted their tactics constantly, used unconventional weapons and strategies, and maintained fighting effectiveness even when facing impossible odds. Colonel Yan Wu-jung developed the strategy that turned the tide of the war. Instead of Trying to defend static positions against the swarm's advance, he proposed taking the fight directly to the enemy. Every other species tries to minimize casualties by fighting defensively, he explained to the combined Galactic Command Staff. But the swarm gets stronger every day it's allowed to consume more resources. We need to attack them before they get too powerful to stop. The plan was insane by galactic standards. Instead of protecting their own territory, the humans proposed launching deep strike missions into swarm-controlled space, targeting the enemy's resource-gathering operations and command structures. You're talking about suicide missions, Admiral Kethron protested. The casualty rates would be enormous. Probably, Colonel Yanwu agreed calmly. But if we don't take these risks now, everyone dies anyway. At least this way, we have a chance. The human approach to warfare was fundamentally different from anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where other species sought to minimize losses and end conflicts quickly, humans planned for sustained campaigns with acceptable casualty rates. They prepared for wars of attrition that could last years or decades, but more importantly, they were willing to sacrifice themselves for species they barely knew. Human volunteers signed up for missions with near-zero survival chances to protect alien worlds they had never visited. Captain Sang-min, O, led the most famous of these suicide missions. His converted cargo hauler, the Seoul Express, carried a skeleton crew deep into swarm territory to destroy a major resource processing facility. The mission succeeded, but none of the crew survived. Lieutenant Ju-eun Kim manually detonated antimatter charges while still aboard a captured swarm vessel, destroying both herself and a critical enemy command ship. Her sacrifice allowed the human fleet to exploit a gap in swarm defenses and achieve their first major victory. The gallery of heroes grew daily. Humans died by the thousands, but their sacrifices were not meaningless. Each death taught the galaxy something new about fighting the swarm. Each mission revealed new weaknesses in the enemy's defenses. Each battle brought them closer to finding a way to win the impossible war. What shocked the galactic observers was not just human willingness to die for others, but their ability to learn and adapt from each sacrifice. Every failed mission was analyzed, every tactical error was corrected, every weakness was identified and addressed. They're not just brave, observed tactical analyst Morvek. They're learning from their mistakes faster than the swarm can adapt to their methods. It's become a race between human innovation and swarm adaptation. The turning point came when Dr. Chang-min Seo's research team captured intact swarm technology and began reverse engineering it in real time during active combat operations. Working on battlefields while under fire, human scientists learned to understand and counter swarm systems. We've identified the control frequency for their adaptive shielding, Dr. Chang-min reported from a captured swarm facility. If we can disrupt it at the source, their entire fleet becomes vulnerable for approximately 18 minutes. The final assault was everything the galaxy had learned about human warfare condensed into a single, desperate gamble. Admiral In-sung Park led a combined fleet of human and alien vessels in a direct assault on the swarm's dimensional gateway, the source of their endless reinforcements. The battle lasted 36 hours and cost thousands of lives. But when it ended, the Void Swarm was no longer an infinite threat. Cut off from their extra-dimensional reinforcements, the remaining swarm ships could be hunted down and destroyed by conventional forces. As the galaxy counted the cost of victory, one truth became undeniable. Without the humans, galactic civilization would have been completely destroyed. The species that the galaxy had feared would bring violence and chaos had instead saved them from extinction. But the victory had changed humanity as much as it had saved the galaxy. They had proven themselves in the most extreme circumstances possible, and there was no longer any question. The silence in the Galactic Council chambers was heavier than the weight of dead stars. 3 months had passed since the final Void Swarm vessel had been destroyed, and the casualty reports were still coming in. The numbers defied comprehension, but one statistic stood out above all others. Humanity had suffered losses at a rate that should have broken any species' will to fight. Ambassador Veltar stood before the assembled delegates, his crystalline form dimmed with exhaustion and something that might have been shame. In his hands, he held the final casualty assessment that would reshape how the galaxy viewed both war and peace. The human losses, he began, his voice carrying across the vast hall. Total 732,000 personnel. This represents 18% of their total interstellar population. The murmur of shock that rippled through the assembly was genuine. Most galactic species would have surrendered after losing 5% of their forces. The humans had continued fighting after losing nearly 1 in 5 of their people in space. Admiral Kethron rose from his seat, his warrior's pride humbled by what he had witnessed. These were not just soldiers, he reported to the council. Captain Sangminho was a cargo pilot who volunteered for a suicide mission to save a crystalline nursery world he had never seen. Lieutenant Juin Kim was a communications officer who chose to stay behind on a captured swarm vessel to ensure its destruction. The holographic memorial that filled the center of the chamber showed the faces of human heroes, but what struck the alien observers was how ordinary they looked. These were not the genetically engineered super soldiers of galactic fiction, but regular humans who had chosen to sacrifice everything for people they barely knew. "They died for us," whispered Council Member Thisara, her delicate features twisted with grief. "They died for species that had feared them, quarantined them, and tried to limit their expansion. And they did it willingly." Dr. Changmin Sio's post-war analysis revealed the true scope of what humanity had accomplished. His research team had not only reverse-engineered void swarm technology during active combat, they had improved upon it. The weapons and defensive systems developed during the war represented advances that would normally take centuries to achieve. The humans didn't just fight the swarm, he reported to the stunned gathering of galactic scientists. They learned from them. They adapted swarm biotechnology, incorporated their energy systems, and developed countermeasures for threats we didn't even know existed. The implications were staggering. Humanity had emerged from the war not weakened by their losses, but strengthened by their innovations. Every sacrifice had taught them something new. Every defeat had shown them a better way to fight. But the most disturbing revelation came from long-range reconnaissance missions. Human ships were already exploring the dimensional rift where the Ion void swarm had originated, treating it not as a source of ancient terror but as a new frontier to be mapped and understood. "They want to explore beyond the galaxy," reported Navigation Coordinator Vexhan with barely concealed alarm. "They're planning expeditions to other dimensions, other realities. The war didn't satisfy their need for challenges. It gave them ideas for bigger ones." The economic transformation was equally dramatic. The technologies developed during the war were revolutionizing galactic industry. Human innovations in energy production, materials science, and biotechnology were creating possibilities that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had never imagined. Trade Minister Qualteth presented the economic projections with obvious unease. "At current rates of technological advancement and expansion, human economic output will exceed the combined production of the rest of the galaxy within 50 years. They're not just participating in our economy, they're transforming it beyond recognition." Human colonies were spreading at an unprecedented rate. Worlds that had been considered uninhabitable were becoming thriving centers of industry and research. The humans seemed to view the most dangerous environments as the most attractive real estate. President Haewon Lee addressed the Galactic Assembly from Earth's rebuilt capital. Her words carried across light years to every inhabited world. Her message was simple but carried implications that would reshape galactic civilization. "Humanity offers the galaxy a new partnership," she declared. "Not as subjects seeking admission to your established order, but as equals ready to build something greater than what any of us could achieve alone." The transformation was already visible throughout galactic society. Young members of every species were studying human techniques, adopting human attitudes toward risk and exploration, and questioning limitations that had been accepted for millennia. Universities were revising their curricula to include human approaches to problem-solving. Military academies were studying human tactics and finding their own doctrines inadequate. Research institutions were adopting human methods of controlled experimentation that produced results at unprecedented rates. "They're not conquering us with weapons," observed cultural analyst Plexion. They're conquering us with possibilities. Every interaction with humans shows us that our limitations were often just assumptions we never bothered to challenge. The political implications were profound. The careful balance of power that had maintained galactic stability for thousands of years was dissolving. Species that had been content with their place in the established order were now demanding changes, improvements, and expanded opportunities. Ambassador Yoon Young-han's diplomatic revolution was spreading throughout the galaxy. Traditional negotiations that had taken decades were being resolved in weeks through human methods of direct communication and practical problem-solving. The old ways are dying, admitted diplomatic coordinator Felthanis. Species that once accepted slow, careful progress now expect rapid results. Governments that once maintained power through stability now face populations that demand innovation and expansion. The military transformation was complete. The Galactic Defense Force was being restructured around human principles of rapid deployment, tactical flexibility, and acceptable risk tolerance. The old doctrine of minimal casualties and defensive warfare had been replaced by human concepts of strategic offense and calculated sacrifice. Admiral In-sung Park had been appointed as the new Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense, the first non-founding species member to hold the position. His first act was to establish training programs that would teach alien crews to fight with human effectiveness and determination. The next threat may not give us time to adapt, he explained to the assembled military leadership. We need forces that can innovate under pressure, operate in impossible conditions, and maintain effectiveness even when facing overwhelming odds. The ancient keeper Zixthal made his final address to the Galactic Council before retiring to the meditation worlds. His words carried the weight of prophecy and the sadness of transformation. The age of careful civilization is over, he declared. The humans have shown us that safety and progress cannot coexist. We chose safety, and we nearly died because of it. Now we must choose progress and accept the risks that come with it. Young species throughout the galaxy were embracing the human model of expansion and exploration. The careful territorial boundaries that had maintained peace for millennia were dissolving as species pushed outward into previously forbidden regions. The crystalline hegemony announced plans to colonize high-radiation worlds using human-designed protective systems. The gas giant collective began mining operations in gravitationally unstable systems that they had previously avoided. The ethereal empire started exploring parallel dimensions using technology derived from the Void Swarm conflict. Trade routes that had remained unchanged for thousands of years were being replaced by new passages through dangerous regions that only humans had been willing to explore. Commerce that had taken months was now completed in days, and goods that had been impossibly rare were becoming commonplace. Research projects that had been theoretical for centuries were being implemented with human engineering techniques. Technologies that had been considered too dangerous were being developed with human safety protocols that accepted calculated risks. The galaxy was becoming more dynamic, more innovative, and infinitely more dangerous. Ships were traveling routes that claimed regular casualties but offered unprecedented opportunities. Colonies were being established in environments that killed significant percentages of their populations, but provided access to resources beyond imagination. As President Haiwan Lee concluded her address to the Galactic Assembly, her final words summarized the transformation that was sweeping across the stars. The galaxy belongs to all of us now, she declared. Not because we conquered it, but because we proved that conquest was never necessary. We showed you that your limitations were choices, your boundaries were decisions, and your careful stability was actually stagnation in disguise. The applause that followed was not the polite appreciation of diplomatic courtesy, but the genuine enthusiasm of beings who had discovered that their universe was larger, more exciting, and more full of possibilities than they had ever dared to imagine. The galaxy had dreaded humanity's arrival because they feared human violence would destroy their civilization.